On today's edition of Cronkite Sports Live, it's Halloweekend here in Tempe, but Kenny Dillingham and Cam Scatterby have been serving up tricks all season long.
ASU soccer continues their Cinderella run in the Rockies. Stay tuned to find out how ASU's tournament resume stacks up with only 2 games left in the regular season.
Arizona State basketball is on the horizon. Sit down, grab some popcorn, and check out what has went down since March with the season quickly approaching. All of this and so much more on today's edition of Cronkite Sports Live.
Taxes and Cronkite Sports Live on Fridays. How's it going? I'm Riley Swenson. He's Kevin Malater. Kevin, it's Halloween weekend. Any plans for a costume?
See, I'm not much of a dress-up guy, I would say myself, Riley, but I'm a big fan of candy.
Well, it might be hard to believe, but I'm a bit of a candy guy myself. Enough about us, though. Let's talk football, where the team is coming off a tough loss to Washington on the road in what was an incredible environment.
Could not agree more with you on that. The Sun Devils were close, but got caught up in the purple rain up in Seattle. They held a 7-3 lead going into the fourth quarter and didn't allow an offensive touchdown against the high-powered Husky offense. Now they come back home looking to play a complete game. Here's head coach Kenny Dillingham on the key to playing a full 4 quarters tomorrow afternoon.
Coach Blake Neiman, Cronkite Sports, you have held the lead going into the fourth quarter in these past 2 games. You talked about how close you are to getting over the hump to a victory. What it goes into getting that final finish in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, cleaning the bus after the game. That's the difference. Cleaning the bus. Defense's bus is clean, offense's bus is dirty. That's what goes into winning those types of football games.
Every Sun Devil knows the phrase "stop the bus." Now we can add the phrase "clean the bus" to the Dillingham Dictionary, courtesy of our own Blake Neiman, who now joins us live in studio. And Blake, we'll start with the defensive bus. Just how clean was it last Saturday night against Washington?
Well, apparently the bus driver told Kenny Dillingham later on that it was the cleanest bus she's ever seen. It's a pretty good illustration of the polarization between the ASU offense and the ASU defense. It's hard to put into perspective how special that Sun Devil defense's performance was up in Seattle in the greatest setting, hostile environment, yet ASU's defense forced 4 turnovers, and 2 of them were interceptions on the Heisman favorite, Michael Penix Jr., and then also limiting him to under 300-yard passing, and then not allowing an offensive touchdown against one of the premier offenses in the nation. But in the end, it's about winning, and ASU lost the game. ASU's offense wasn't able to get it done in the red zone, and then special teams botched a pair of field goals. So to put it all together, the defense has been driving the bus up the victory hill, but then when the offense takes the wheel, they kind of put the bus in neutral and they fall right back down.
Yeah, speaking of that defense, new defensive coordinator Brian Ward, he came over from Washington State a year ago. How has he impacted the defense's success this season for ASU?
Yeah, what an addition Brian Ward has been to Kenny Dillingham's staff. He has been a guy who has helped ASU compete in games a lot of people counted them down and out of. I mean, for some context from last season under Donnie Henderson, ASU allowed over 30 points in 5 of its first 7 games. This year under Brian Ward, they have only allowed 30 plus to USC, a very good offense in that respect. And then also ASU only had 17 sacks all of last season, and then Brian Ward came into this season, knew he wanted to establish ASU as an elite pass rush defense, and they have just done that. 18 sacks so far, already surpassing last season's total, and there's still 5 games to go, so who knows what they can do from there. And then the only blemish really against him was the turnovers, and then that is out the window now with last weekend's incredible performance up at Washington. So Kenny Dillingham has said he wants to keep Brian Ward around for a long time, and he's going to do everything he can to make that happen.
Let's talk about his old school right now. What are some of the challenges that they pose to this ASU team tomorrow afternoon? Yeah,
certainly, being in Pullman for last year with Brian Ward, he has a great understanding of what this Wazoo team brings to the table, but that doesn't mean it's going to be an easy outing for ASU. Brian Ward said about Washington State's quarterback, Cam Ward, no relation as far as I know, but that he's the most dynamic runner that ASU is going to see this season. He even said as much as to say that he'd rather face Caleb Williams than Cam Ward. Brian Ward said that the Cougs quarterback is a creator. He just has a lot of receivers around him that are as good as anyone in the country as getting open in the scramble position. And then just looking at the ASU offense, this is a very similar defense to what the Sun Devils have. So they're already kind of used to facing that in practice, spring ball, and fall camp. So it's going to be a lot easier task for them. But just overall, both these teams are hungry. ASU has lost 6 straight. Wazoo has lost 3 in a row. So expect it to be a scrappy battle on Saturday as both these teams look to get back in the win column.
Something's got to give. Blake, thank you so much for your time. We'll see how this ASU team performs against a Washington State team that has taken 4 of the last 5 in this series.
It's Halloween, so of course we have to talk about ASU running back Cam Scattaboo. See what we did there? Kenny Dillingham has used the transfer running back in a variety of ways, and his tricks have led to plenty of treats. Our Parker Perrell has the spooky story.
And the atmosphere has been getting pretty spooky in Tempe. Sun Devil running back Cameron Scattaboo has been making opponents see ghosts all year long inside Kenny Dillingham's trick-or-treat style offense. There were king-sized questions surrounding whether or not the former Big Sky Offensive Player of the Year could succeed against FBS opponents. To those doubters, look no further than this first trick. It's Sparky formation where, typically in short yardage situations, Scattaboo has been lining up in the pocket, then the bruising back lowers the shoulder and pushes the pile, providing a first down treat to the ASU offense. People young and old dress up or play pretend for Halloween. This next trick has Scattaboo in his Trenton Bourget costume, taking the handoff but then removing his running back mask to air it out, supplying the Sun Devils with a tasty 18 yards and bringing the Arizona State drive back from the dead. With a name like Scattaboo, it's no wonder he's a feared adversary on the gridiron. But the real reason Scattaboo causes defenses to feel frightened is because he always catches them by surprise. For this final trick, Scattaboo takes us back to the 50s with a surprise quick kick. This pooch punt, often done in 4th and short, catches defenses off guard and gives the Devils some pretty sweet field position. This season, despite the Devils' offensive shortcomings, one thing is certain. If there's a trick to be given or a treat to be received, defenses beware. Because with Scattaboo in the backfield, it's Halloween every Saturday.
ASU soccer has had an impressive year this far, and to close out the regular season, the Devils are going out National Lampoon style on a little road trip. WCSN soccer reporter Ryan Myers has the roadmap and the details of the Sun Devils' travels.
After an impressive homestand last weekend, Arizona State women's soccer looks to end its season strong with a 3-game road trip to round off the year. The first stop of the Sun Devil tour was in Salt Lake City, where Utah was able to handle business last night with 2 top corner goals past star keeper Pauline Nels. Although the Utes had only 1 Pac-12 win going into last night, they've managed good results against teams like Washington State and California. But last night's win was the biggest result for the Utes thus far. Yesterday's defeat means back-to-back losses for the Sun Devils for the first time this season, and they've failed to score in both matches. ASU will look to bounce back in Boulder on Sunday versus Colorado. The Buffs won last night over Arizona, and Pac-12 leading goal scorer Shira James has tallied a dozen goals for herself this season, and she'll look to be a threat once again against the Sun Devils. ASU will need to be wary of set pieces. Utah's first goal last night came from a free kick, and Colorado looked to capitalize on corners often. The final match of ASU season takes place down south versus Arizona next Friday. Sun Devils got the nod over their rivals last season, and they'll look to repeat against the relatively weak Arizona squad that ranks 3rd to last in the Pac-12 in goals scored. Head coach Graham Winkworth has called this year, quote, a Cinderella season for Arizona State, but the Sun Devils will need to finish strong if they want that magic to continue. For Cronkite Sports, I'm Ryan Myers.
Thank you, Ryan. The NCAA tournament is just around the corner in the collegiate soccer landscape, and to give you a forecast on what the tournament field could look like, here's Devin Henderson.
Yeah, Calvin, we're T-minus 10 days from tournament selection day, and every team is readying their resumes hoping to get in. Let's break down how it works for y'all real quick. It's like basketball. 64 total teams, the 31 conference champions, they'll get auto bids, and that leaves 33 at-large spots for the rest of the country. And that's where ASU fits in. Look, they won't win the Pac-12. They showed in their 2-0 loss to Utah last night that they're capable of dropping some bad games, but the resume right now should still be good enough to get a postseason berth. This team that, mind you, lost their 3 best players to graduation last year is an improved 10-4-4 on the season so far. But to really understand why this year has been so impressive, you got to look even deeper into that record. The Sun Devils, who currently rank 22nd in the RPI, have 3 top 40 results, a draw to number 16 Mississippi State, and dubs against 33 USC and 37 Washington State, a game where ASU ran them off the field, beating them 5-0. But honestly, it's not even just the wins that strengthen this resume, it's the quality of losses. Outside of last night's hiccup, they lost to only 3 other teams this entire year, and all 3 of those programs, Texas Tech, Stanford, and UCLA, are currently in the RPI top 10. In those marquee games, never once did the Sun Devils ever trail by more than a single goal, and in all those matches, it took late 70th-plus minute goals to down ASU. Man, they pushed defending national champion UCLA to the 88th of 90 minutes before conceding the only goal of the game. Now, really quick, just for comparison's sake, last year's Sun Devils, who did go to the tournament, went 9-6-3 with a single top 50 RPI victory and some pretty bad losses, specifically a late season 3-1 L to Oregon State, who at the time were at the bottom of the conference. Now, barring any big meltdowns these last 2 games, if the past is any indicator of the future, ASU has already done more than enough to get its resume approved by the committee for postseason play. Guys?
All righty, Devin, thank you so much. From the pitch to the frozen pond, Sun Devil Hockey is off to the program best 4-0 start in their final season as an independent and have NCAA tournament aspirations in mind. For more on the last Sun Devil Hockey team to make the Field of 16, we now go to WCSN hockey reporter Eric List.
In their 4th year Division I side, the 2018-2019 season was kind to the Sun Devils, who posted a 21-13-1 record and made the NCAA tournament for their first time in program history. Following that season, ASU looked poised to make another postseason berth, sitting at a program-high 22 wins with only 11 losses and 3 ties. But the momentum was halted when COVID hit. Since then, Arizona State hockey has not been able to get back to the 20-win mark or make an NCAA tournament. So, how did those 2 teams find success, and what does ASU need to do to get back to the tournament? The program opened the 2018-19 campaign with a 2-0 record, its best start until now, when it's won its first 4 games this season. Leading the way in 2018-19 was sophomore forward Johnny Walker, with a team-high 23 goals and 34 points. Ranked 10th in the pairwise that year meant ASU would go dancing. However, it would be short-lived following a loss to number 2 Quinnipiac in the opening round. In the next season, ASU looked poised again to make a tournament run, as Walker returned for a junior campaign that saw him lead the team with 20 goals. He also had help from James Sanchez, who puts together his best collegiate season with 10 goals and a staggering 30 assists in his first year removed from the USHL and a prior stint at Michigan. But more importantly, they had depth. For the first and only time in program history, ASU had 6 players with double-digit goal tallies. The team combined for a total of 121 goals that year, a stat that is yet to be broken. This year, it's about getting back to basics, which means finding the identity that shaped their 2 tournament teams. Head coach Greg Powers says that identity was relentless, heavy, and hard skills. That is a possibility for the team this year, as it has players that can score like Matthew Koprud and transfer Alex Young. The Sun Devils have a top and bottom 6 that can compete, with its 4th line being their best line according to Powers, and an offensive core that is hard and heavy. If they can keep rolling like they are now, a tournament berth could once again be in the cards for ASU.
Thank you, Eric. The Sun Devils hit the road for the first time this season as they travel to Miami. No, not that Miami, the one in Oxford, Ohio. And to discuss the matchup, we bring in WCSN hockey reporter Anthony Remedios. Anthony, always good to see you, my man. And before we get into the opponent, let's talk ASU. Obviously, they're undefeated, as we just heard. What has made them so tough to play against?
Well, to start, Riley, the special teams unit has been phenomenal for the Sun Devils, only allowing 2 power play goals all season, both of which were against Northern Michigan last week. And although that currently ranks tied for 17th in the nation, the team finished 4th in the country on the penalty kill last season at 86%. On the other side of that, the power play unit looked strong against the Wildcats last weekend, scoring on 4 of 10 attempts in an effort that was tremendously complemented by the defense. After a 10-goal performance at Duluth the week before, ASU held Northern Michigan to just 3 goals for the entire weekend only one of which was scored at even strength.
All right, so the team, obviously, they've been stellar as a whole, but tell me, who are some of the individuals who've had the biggest impact so far?
Well, two of the guys who have stood out to me so far, Riley, are senior forward Matthew Copperroot and graduate forward Tyler Gratton. Copperroot is currently tied with three others for the team lead in points with 4, 3 goals and 1 assist, and just set the record for most power play goals as a Sun Devil at 26. He's also scored the game-winning goal in 3 of ASU's 4 games this season. Now, let's talk about Tyler Gratton. A big, gritty athlete whose 1 goal and 2 assists may not look all that impressive to you, but his leadership has already left an impact on the team. Head coach Greg Powers has talked extensively this season about his character and leadership because of how quickly he gained the respect from his peers. Gratton was unanimously voted as ASU's captain after 4 seasons at Penn State and an additional 4 years in the USHL.
Before we let you go, Anthony, ASU is ranked as high as 13 in one poll this week and number 3 in the pairwise. With that in mind and considering the Sun Devils' struggles on the road in recent years, what exactly does this series mean in the long run?
Although the polls and pairwise rankings are seemingly irrelevant right now due to the small sample size, every road game will hold a big impact for the Sun Devils down the stretch. In ASU's 2 tournament qualifying seasons in 2019 and 2020, the team went 9-9 and 10-8 on the road, respectively. In the last 2 seasons that saw promising starts, the Sun Devils have gone a collective 9-22-1 on the road. Since the opening of Mullet Arena last season, Powers has regularly emphasized the importance of winning on the road and the eventual impact later in the season. With just 10 road games this year, this weekend series against a future NCHC opponent is among the team's most important.
All right, Anthony. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And like you said, the polls are fun to look at right now, but it's still too early for them to matter. Here's what Coach Powers had to say on the attention his team is getting.
I mean, we haven't done anything. It's paper champions right now. The rankings don't matter. I mean, coaches' polls and media polls, they don't matter, right? It's all for you guys. It's not for us. You know, the pairwise matters. It's too early to even look at the pairwise. It doesn't matter. There's not enough data to make it even relevant. So we don't look at that until about 15 games in. But we're playing one game at a time. That's all you can do as an independent. You have to treat every game like it's a playoff game because it is. This weekend is a big weekend for us. We don't have as many road opportunities as normal, and you get rewarded. The pairwise rewards you for going on the road and especially winning on the road. So, you know, going and getting a win or 2 this weekend will be big for us down the stretch.
An undefeated season was probably never in the cards for ASU volleyball with the grueling gauntlet of the Pac-12. After starting 14-0, they have suffered 3 losses in the last 4 weeks, and a common theme stands out in all of them. To break it all down, we bring in our own Tyler Weiss for this edition of By the Numbers.
Thanks, Riley. ASU volleyball offensively has a high overall team hitting percentage of .295 that ranks 10th in the nation and 3rd in the Pac-12. However, in the last month, the Sun Devils offense has seen some uncharacteristic struggles. These struggles have been especially evident in ASU's 3 losses. In wins this season, Arizona State has collectively averaged a hitting percentage of .309, a Grand Canyon-sized gap when compared to the team's hitting percentage of .170 in losses this season. Of the 3 losses this season, the Sun Devils have gotten swept twice. This year, one being at the hands of number 3 Stanford and the other against Colorado. Against the Cardinal, ASU had a team hitting percentage of .125, and against Colorado, ASU had a hitting percentage of .139. These are the 2 lowest in a match by the Sun Devils so far this season. In the 5-set loss against Oregon State, ASU had a team hitting percentage of .222, the team's 5th lowest in a match this season. The Sun Devils have a great opportunity on Sunday's rematch against Stanford at Mullet Arena to prove that their offensive unit is capable of performing at a high level, even against some of the most formidable conference opponents. Now back to you guys at the desk.
All right, Tyler, thanks so much. Historically impactful women's volleyball, there are no free wins, especially on the road. And that holds true even in the league's final season. Our Max Cepeda has more.
A 19-3 record in Division I volleyball, by any stretch of the imagination, is an incredible achievement. And for programs such as Arizona State, it can seem as a rare occurrence to many. A Sun Devil squad that has battled with perennial powerhouses and executed some thrilling performances has led many to believe that this team may just have some postseason future to look forward to. However, after the Sun Devils' most recent loss to the Colorado Buffaloes in Boulder Sunday, some argue that the loss is a massive blow for ASU, seeing that they fell to a team that was just above 500 and only had 3 conference wins in comparison to the Sun Devils' 7. Nevertheless, there is one key factor that must be reiterated. The Pac-12, for decades, has been one of the gravitational centers of the collegiate volleyball world. And as the conference writes its final chapter this season, what will be missed is the elite competition that the Sun Devils are expected to face every year. From the journeys to the Pacific Northwest and schools like No. 9 Oregon, who already fell to ASU this season and will soon join fellow volleyball powerhouses like Nebraska and Wisconsin in the Big Ten, to the trips to sunny Southern California and the national brands of 3-time national champion USC and 4-time winner UCLA. And even for a program like Oregon State, who defeated the Sun Devils while sitting second to last in the pack, the Beavers remain competitive against some of the nation's top volleyball schools, making their uncertain future following this year an intriguing storyline. However, this weekend may be the most reminiscent of all, as the Sun Devils welcome the Bay Area schools to Tempe for one final time before they bounce to the ACC, including a matchup with No. 5 Stanford. The Cardinal already took down the Sun Devils in straight sets to hand ASU its first loss of the year, and as the Sun Devils have lost the last 26 in a row to the ladies from the Bay, it will make this Sunday the last opportunity to end the streak of defeats in conference play. The fact of the matter is, the Pac-12's volleyball dominance has been felt for many years, including its now farewell season, making every single Sun Devil victory a precious one to seize, as ASU now sits on the verge of the NCAA tournament for the first time in 7 years.
As you snuggle in for a Netflix movie on a fall evening, we've got another option for you that's not Hocus Pocus or Halloween Town. Our own Ronan Haycoop has a feature film on Bobby Hurley and the new look Sun Devils. Let's have a watch.
Bobby Hurley and Arizona State have brought in 10 new fresh faces to replace the 10 outgoing transfers from last season. Hurley was able to secure the 43rd best transfer class in the nation. Now let's take a second to check out Bobby's list and who, fresh out of the portal, shows the most promise. The first episode on Bobby's list is centered around sophomore forward Kamari Lands out of Louisville. The forward averaged 5.9 points and 1.9 rebounds for the Cardinals in his freshman campaign, playing 32 games and earning 6 starts, and reaching double figures in 4 of those last 11 games. Standing at 6'8", 220, Lance has all the intangibles you could ask for out of a college wing. Working off the catch is Lance's bread and butter. Off the rip through, Lance can use that 6'8" frame to get past any guard and has the speed and handle to get around most bigs. Backed up with a good clip from beyond the arc and a great defensive skill set, Lance is simply a scouting nightmare. One place Lance needs to improve on is his bag. Don't expect Lance to break down defenders working out of the half court, but he certainly isn't a liability with the ball in his hands and moves well out of transition with the rock. Next on our list is redshirt junior Adam Miller. The transfer guard from LSU played and started all 33 games for the Tigers last season, averaging 11.5 points, 2.3 rebounds, and 1.7 assists. Miller is elite. Simple as that. Working at the 2, Miller's speed and basketball awareness makes him the perfect off-ball scoring option. Working off a down screen, Miller has the knack for getting open, and with his ability to shoot off the catch and the dribble, opens up the floor not only for himself to get downhill, but for his teammates inside. Miller's game complements returner Frankie Collins extremely well. Chemistry between those two will be paramount to the Sun Devils' success this season. Alright, next episode. Following Miller from the Bayou is sophomore big Sean Phillips Jr. The 7-footer didn't get off to the best start at LSU, averaging just 1.4 points and 2.2 rebounds on just 7 minutes a game. However, Phillips started to settle in towards the latter half of the season for the Tigers, putting up double digits against Georgia in the SEC tournament. Phillips' ceiling is an elite college big, no ifs and buts about it, yet he still needs time to grow into his frame. In the words of Bobby Hurley, quote, "Sean is the most gifted front court guy I've had," end quote. Hurley would later go on to say that patience is important for the Sun Devils in terms of Phillips' development as a player. With so many questions flying around Tempe, and after a solid 23-win season, followed by a first-round exit from the NCAA tournament, then losing 10 players to the portal in the offseason, the chips appeared to be stacked against the Sun Devils. But if there's one thing Hurley can do, that is recruit. And it looks like Hurley might just have assembled the pieces he needs for yet another tournament berth. For Cronkite Sports, I'm Ronan Haycoop.
Reese's Peanut Butter Cups and candy corn, two staples this time of year. Just like Frankie Collins and Jemiah Neal are two staples of the Sun Devil roster. Our Justin Lacertosa breaks down the duo as they return for another season in Tempe.
Thanks, guys. With so many fresh faces ready to lace up for Arizona State this season, returning junior guards Frankie Collins and Jemiah Neal are primed to take steps up as leaders for Sun Devil men's hoops. Collins and Neal have already been vocal about the importance of getting the newcomers accustomed to different sets and schemes, and on the hardwood itself, they're ready to lead by example. Voids must be filled, and with Collins being the lone returning starter from last season, he'll have to take that jump offensively to keep this team afloat. The 6'1" guard specializes at attacking downhill and getting to the cup, while being a more than reliable pick-and-roll operator who has a knack for reading opposing defenses. On the flip side, Neal will be called upon to take the reins as the lead wing creator. His aggressive slashing repertoire, coupled with his ability to put the ball on the floor and his quick, high-arcing release point, allows him to create from all three levels. Neal's perimeter attack, combined with Collins' smarts as the lead initiator, create for a perfect foil offensively, giving Arizona State a new dynamic duo that is ready to take charge on the hardwood. Let's continue on the hardwood with year 2 of the Natasha Adair era. Her first go-around wasn't quite what she had in mind, going 1-17 in conference play. With the new season around the corner, news broke that the Sun Devils will be without senior point guard Ty Skinner. To take a look at some possible pieces to fill that void, here's our Isai Romero.
Arizona State women's basketball is already facing preseason woes after a disappointing season last year. Earlier this month, the team announced that senior point guard Ty Skinner will miss the full 2023-2024 season due to a knee injury. Skinner was fantastic in her first season in the maroon and gold, averaging 19.3 points, which is good for second in the pack. Without Skinner, Coach Adair will now have to fill a scoring and playmaking void in the backcourt. Senior guard Jaden Simmons is the obvious first option in the starting lineup, as she's a very skilled and natural scorer. Last year, Simmons averaged 12 points, but was used primarily as an off-ball threat. Coach Adair often ran sets and actions to Simmons rather than through her. She is best when going downhill and being aggressive off the triple threat. Simmons is a solid playmaker out of the pick and roll, as she led the team in assists, but does not have the ability to stretch the floor like Skinner can. Although Simmons might not have the range Skinner has, the pressure she puts on the rim will allow opportunities to be created for others. Sophomore guard Treyana Crisp is one of the first names that comes to mind when looking to pair somebody with Simmons in the backcourt. A Valley native, Crisp may not stand out on the stat sheet, but has a skill set to make a jump. Facilitating is her strong suit, and when Skinner stepped off the floor, Crisp was tasked with running ASU sets with Simmons beside her working off ball. Where ASU is most potent without Skinner is working off a horn set with a double screen, which allowed Simmons to get open and work off the rib. The challenge now falls on Coach Adair and her team to find the right pieces to the puzzle and get back to competing in the last year of the Pac-12. For Cronkite Sports.
Hey, thank you, Eastside. Inside the pool this season, the Sun Devils have yet to cool off as we progress into the later parts of 2023 and into 2024. So we join our Justin Carter as he joins us for today's second edition of By the Numbers.
Yeah, guys, the Sun Devils are bulldozing every team they've faced this season. One big factor in this is graduate student Jack Dolan. Dolan's been lighting it up in the pool this year, and that continued last Friday against North Carolina State. In the 50 free, Dolan swam a 19:02 for first place and the 6th best time in school history. The top 5, all owned by Dolan as well. Not only that, 19:02 is the fastest 50 free time in the nation this year. He also swam the 100 free where he took first with an NCAA leading 42:20. Apparently that wasn't good enough for Dolan because in the 400 free relay, he swam a 41.86 split. Once again, good enough for the NCAA lead and another first place finish. Dolan also swam in the 200 medley relay, not in freestyle, but in backstroke to lead off. ASU would win the relay with a 1:22.67 time, in part due to Dolan's 21.05 split. The race was the 5th fastest 200 medley relay in school history. Truth is, this ASU swim team is absolutely stacked, and Dolan is a big piece of the puzzle that's helped them to a #1 ranking and victories over #4 NC State and now #9 Georgia. We can dive into the numbers all we want, but only time will tell what kind of splash Dolan will make as the season continues to progress. Guys?
Thank you, Justin. It's time for some top plays. And Kevin, it's Friday. We need something on ice. ASU hockey, they're on the power play. And of course, Matthew Copperwood scores his 26th career power play goal, passing Johnny Walker for the most in program history. And as a bonus, Sun Devils win 5-1.
We go to the Pacific Northwest. How about these iced out uniforms that ASU wore last weekend in Seattle? And how about that play right there? Deflected at the line, Shamari Simmons picks off Michael Penix Jr., his second turnover of the game.
At number 2, we go to the pitch, a penalty kick, but goalkeeper Pauline Nels is up to the task, reads the hips of the shooter like a defensive back. You can see her guess the correct way. Big save. Unfortunately, the Sun Devils would lose 1-0.
From one football to the American football for top play number 1. And once again, how about this Sun Devil defense? They make Michael Penix Jr., the Heisman candidate, struggle big time. Ro Torrance picks him off on a bad throw from Penix. That was the first Sun Devil interception of the 2023 football season, whether you could believe it or not. And whether you could believe it or not, our show has come to a close. A big thanks to all those who work behind the scenes for Riley Swenson. I'm Kevin Malater. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on another edition of Cronkite Sports Live.